Dan Gjeldum of Guaranteed Rate is here with us. For those that haven't had the opportunity to work with Dan, Dan is one of the financial strengths behind so many of our clients. My most trusted lender. He is the guy that I go to every time I have a question, every time I want advice. You are the first person I call.
I appreciate it.
Can you talk a little bit about a refinance? I think that a lot of people, where it's a word that we toss around a lot, I think a lot of people are very unaware of kind of what it means, when to do it, what does it cost, kind of, there's a lot of questions in on it.
Yeah, absolutely. So a refinance is you're starting your mortgage over, right, at a lower rate and most likely a lower loan amount, right? Because we're going to refinance what you owe at the time of the refi. What people don't tend to understand, there's always, because everybody's parents always tell them, wait till rates drop 0.5 point or 1%. Well, depending on your loan amount, you might only need 0.25% to have it make a difference. And making a difference is just if somebody can save $200 a month and that's meaningful to them, and any costs that are incurred are made up inside of a year, that makes sense. I mean, there's also the people who have a ton of equity in their property and they can pay things off with the refinance by taking money out of their house. So a refinance is just you're getting a new mortgage at a different rate and a different loan amount, and you want the whole thing to make sense to you personally.
Okay, so that's a great explanation. What does it cost to refinance?
That's a really good question because costs do vary depending on where you're at. And what I mean by that is we're sitting in Chicago. Our title costs, which are the cost of the title company doing all the paperwork on the county records and things like that, title costs here are much lower than in New York, in Florida, in other parts of the country. There's areas that title costs are less than here, like Iowa and Indiana. But there's costs to do a refi. There's title costs. Some places have recording fees, right? Like the city of Chicago, we have transfer stamps. In places like Florida, you pay mortgage taxes on both your normal purchase and a refi. So there's those kinds of costs. There's lender fees, which is the cost of every lender doing business, credit report fees, as well as appraisal costs.
No, and that's a great point there, because I remember specifically and personally and professionally, we have a property in Florida. You did the purchase stuff for us back in 2017. Yep. We wanted to refinance that mortgage. And just a note there, Dan is licensed to work in how many states now?
42.
42. So you did our original purchase there. When rates started going crazy, I said, hey, Dan, let's refinance that number, which wasn't a bad number to begin with, but it just looked great. And you came back to me and said, I'd love to do it for you, but it makes absolutely no financial sense because of the cost to do a refinance in Florida. So the good news is that in Chicago, where the majority of our clients are, it's quite advantageous and it's in a pretty good spot for our clients to take advantage of it because of those aspects.
Yep, for sure.
Okay, now I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit because I know this was a program that you guys were using before.
Yeah.
I know, especially when the rates were really high, Guaranteed Rate had a program where if you did your original loan at a higher interest rate, they were able to offer some rebates on the refinance fees. Is that something that's still in place?
Yeah, 100%. As you mentioned, almost 3 decades, right? I've been doing this for 27 years. We've refinanced people 2, 3, 4 times over, their life of having their home. And we're always going to look to help on the closing costs.
Yep.
We're going to cover as much or if not all of them when the opportunity arises for people.
Super. And the other thing that I just want to point out, because myself in the industry, I remember I was a little surprised the first time I refinanced. And as a professional, if I was, I'm sure other people were. When you do a refinance and your lender tells you that number that you need to bring, the number seems a little higher than it actually is. Because there's things going into escrow typically and things that you're going to be getting back on your old mortgage. So sometimes that upfront number may seem a little bit high, but when you take out what you're going to get back from your last escrow account and those types of things, the numbers actually get to be quite minimal in addition to the interest that you're paying upfront and stuff like that. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, and it's funny because when we talk about the no cost refinance, people are always like, wait a second. There's no cost, but I still have to bring money to the closing.
Yep.
And it is because of that. It's some people, if they have the equity, they just say, I want zero money to closing, just make my loan amount bigger, right? And incorporate all of those funds. But anytime you refinance, as we said, it's a new loan. So we have to set up a new escrow account. You're always chasing interest. So interest is paid backwards. So in the month of March, you pay interest for the month of February. So you pay interest from the day of funding through the end of the month. That's billed at closing. And then you have to set up your escrow account. And the escrow account, the amount that you collect is different per county. Yep. For example, in Chicago or in Chicagoland, Cook County's due dates are different than DuPage, Will, Kane, the surrounding suburbs. So if we had two loans, same loan amounts closing at the same exact time, in Cook and DuPage, the escrow calculations are different. Okay. So people always get confused by that, and they need to remember if your current loan has escrow, the amount that's on deposit has to be credited to you. At times we're able to, if we service the loan, if people have been paying guaranteed rate, we'll give it back to you at closing, right? We'll just credit it right away.
That's probably not so common. You typically pay out of pocket to get it back.
Exactly. And then you get a nice, people always forget about it, and then they get a nice check in the mail, and it's kind of like, oh, there you go. Free money.
I just made money.
Yeah, free money.
Right. Fantastic.